Greetings, students, and welcome to this special domestic edition of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from Southern California. This is the website, the vlog, and the podcast that you come to in order to be notified and learn more about different travel destinations. This is where we come as a community in order to discuss them. Hopefully, this will inspire you to travel more and ultimately to enjoy life more. Now you can find me on different types of social media, including my website, which is at theprofessortravel.com, on YouTube, on Facebook, and now on TikTok. You can find me there at The Professor Travel. If you are an Instagrammer, you can find me there at the underscore professor underscore travel. If you're a Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at the Professor TR1. And then finally, if you're a blogger, you can find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, our visiting professors come to us from the great state of Alabama. I would like to welcome Chris and Laura Barnett. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good.
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate your insight into your state.
Sure.
Now, for the benefit of my students who may not know you or who haven't seen your channel previously, maybe you can go a little bit about and talk to us a little bit about your credentials, either some of your educational background or maybe a few places that you've traveled before.
Well, I've been an elementary teacher since 1992, up until the last couple of years. I work now with community college students that are trying to get their GED.
Okay.
And I help them improve their reading score.
Lovely.
But that's kind of my background.
Lovely.
And he's in IT.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
So I was a late bloomer on school. I didn't know what I wanted to do back in the day, and so I bounced around. I moved around, done a lot of interesting things in my early life, and then I was like, well, I guess I better figure out what I'm gonna do. So I went through nursing school.
Wow.
And was a nurse for about 3 years, um, until I figured out that really wasn't what I wanted to do either. And so I became self-taught in computers, and I've been doing IT work for the last 30 something years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Now, the two of you guys have a travel channel that you guys run, and I definitely want to get into that in just a few minutes. But what are some of the favorite places that you've traveled previously?
Well, I don't know. I think one of my best trips I've ever had, and I'm sure Laura will speak up here in a second, was we took a Laura, myself, and my mother took a trip to London. We stayed a couple of nights in Paris, and stayed a night in Scotland, and got to ride the train, got to stay at a personal home with some friends that we knew there. So we got a little bit of the taste of the culture from all of that, and I still think of that trip.
Yeah, that was one of my most fun trips.
Yeah.
But we also love to cruise.
Yes.
And we're sad that we haven't been able to in a while.
I've had 2 cruises canceled over the last year, so I feel your pain on that. Although
we
they've
love,
been rescheduled.
We love to go to Grand Turk and hang out at the beach and go to Jack Shack. We really loved Megan's Bay Beach when and that was in St. Thomas. And we just, I don't know, there's just so much to love about cruising. But since we haven't been able to cruise, we've also gotten to experience some all-inclusive resorts here in the last several months.
You guys just got back from Cozumel, right?
No, from Cabo.
Oh, from Cabo. I'm sorry. Yeah. How was that?
Yeah, Cabo was
great.
gorgeous. It was, it was so nice.
So pretty.
Got
to go to Cabo Wabo for a little bit.
Yeah, Cabo Wabo was cool.
Very cool. Well, I definitely want to get more into your travels in just a little bit. But the focus of this specific vlog and podcast is going to be on your great state of Alabama. So without further ado, I got to tell you, I don't know that much about your state. So I'm wondering if maybe you can help to educate me with a little bit of history about what you know about the state of Alabama.
Well, I hope we don't tell you anything wrong, but we'll try.
All right.
Well, Alabama was started. You know this better than I do.
Well, the main thing I think of as far as the history of Alabama is how big it was in the civil rights movement, with the Birmingham, the 16th Street Baptist Church, and the bombing there, and of course Rosa Parks and her stand on the bus, and the Montgomery bus boycott, and Martin Luther King Jr. and all of that, involved around Montgomery. And so that's the main thing I think of when I think of Alabama's history.
And I know you guys have a unique distinction of your state was actually named after the river within your area, the Alabama River. And I think, if I'm right, your state was founded in 1817. It's one of the first few states. Obviously, it was in the South during the Civil War. So, I mean, it has some history there, and that's kind of cool in order to be able to check into.
It has a lot of Native American history to it. With the, I think Alabama River was like named after the Alabama, like an Alabama tribe, and then there's like the Coosa River, which was named after, I think, a Coosa Indian tribe, and there's a lot of Native American history tied to Alabama.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about your general geography, because you guys are surrounded by a few states. What states do you have around you?
Well, we have Mississippi is to our west.
Okay.
We have Tennessee is to our north, and Georgia is to our east, and we have a little bit of the Florida Panhandle would be to the east of the Mobile, coast area.
Excellent.
And there's a little place called Florabama that it's a restaurant, I think, called Florabama, or a bar called Florabama that's on the Florida Alabama line.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. And then you were making mention earlier, Laura, of a couple of rivers that are in your area. How many rivers do you guys have? Or is it just are they just a couple, or do you have a few more than that?
We've got quite a few.
Well, we have like the Cahaba River, and there's the Coosa River.
Yep.
And
the Warrior River. Sipsey River. There's quite a few. I don't know them all, but we're literally probably 300 yards off the Cahaba River.
Oh wow, you guys are really close.
Yeah.
Of course,
it's a little river.
It's a little river. You can walk across it, 11 months out of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that 12th month, it's, I'm sure, flooding or something.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Speaking of flooding, speaking of inclement weather, so you guys do get 4 really solid seasons in your state, which is great.
Probably more like 3.
Oh, really?
Because we don't really have a long spring. We kind of go from winter to summer really fast.
that makes sense. What about in terms of inclement weather? Because there, obviously I've heard you guys sometimes will get tornadoes. You guys sometimes get a hurricane that might blow through your area. Is that correct?
Yeah. Alabama is less commonly known as Tornado Alley. We actually have more tornadoes than Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Or Kansas.
Or Kansas.
That whole Tornado Alley, we're probably more well known for tornadoes than they are.
See,
or actually, it would be just the opposite. Most people think of Oklahoma and Kansas,
but we have more.
Yeah, but we have more tornadoes, and we have longer. We have a lot of destruction because our tornadoes tend to be, especially in a breakout like we just had a week ago. the long ground staying long track. That's what they call them, the long track tornadoes. So we just had, I think, two different long track tornadoes just in
within like a week of each other.
Yeah. And that's where they hit the ground and stay on the ground for 100 miles.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. Yeah, it's for me. I grew up with earthquakes, and I'm okay with that. But some people are terrified of earthquakes. I'm terrified of tornadoes. Just the thought of the wind coming and picking my house up and throwing it around.
Well, it can be very terrifying because they are, like you can have one house that's like totally, completely blown off its foundation, and the house next to it isn't touched.
Not even missing a shingle.
Have you guys ever been close to a tornado?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen, as a kid, I saw one on my grandfather's farm, and it passed by us, and he had a probably 50-yard long barn. He was a dairy farmer, and just lifted the roof up, laid it down in front of it on the ground. It wasn't even a shingle missing. It was just moved the roof and set it on the ground.
Oh gosh.
And several years ago, there was a really bad tornado that came through just like a mile and a half or 2 miles from our house, and it did a lot of damage to several neighborhoods close by.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really scary when it happens at night because you can't see anything. And so, you try to look out your windows, which they tell you not to do because, if
Glass.
something comes through the window,
Yeah.
So it can be a little exhilarating and terrifying. I mean, just like I said last week, we got the alerts on our phone, that we were in the path, and it literally passed within 2 miles, 1.5 mile of us in Trustful, and we were running down to the basement bathroom, closing the doors and making sure we had water and stuff. I mean, we were scrambling, so. You never know when you're going to have to jump and run.
Yeah, that seems like that would be a little bit scary for me.
Now, we don't really have much issues with hurricanes here in Birmingham, but in Mobile, they've encountered some hurricanes.
Okay.
Because they're on the coast.
Yeah, and probably
Mobile, that's another thing. You're talking about weather patterns in Alabama. Mobile is actually gets more rain per year than Seattle.
Really?
Yep.
Oh wow! I wonder if it's because it's like so close to their coastline there, and you're like right on the edge of it. So that doesn't surprise me actually. It surprised me that they're getting more, I think, than Seattle, but it really is.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised by that. Now, let's jump into the culture of your state, because I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with all the wonderful things that come out of Alabama. The religion within your area, just to touch base on that for just a moment, is it primarily Southern Baptist?
Yeah, we have a lot of Southern Baptist, a lot of Methodist,
Okay.
some Presbyterian.
Okay, cool.
So I saw that we're considered like the second most religious state in the country.
Okay. And in terms of the arts, whether it's the fine arts, whether it's painting, singing, writing, acting, you have some very famous people that have come out of Alabama. Just a few to know that I put up here on the screen: Helen Keller, Rosa Parks, as you made mention of, Courtney Cox, Channing Tatum, Secretary Condoleezza Rice, Lionel Richie, just to name a few. I was really surprised at how many famous people come out of Alabama. And were there anybody that maybe I hadn't thought about?
Well, Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole, okay.
Hank Lewis.
Hank
Lewis. Or Hank Aaron, I mean.
Or Hank Aaron. Okay.
Hank Aaron. Jim Neighbors.
Well, girl.
Oh.
Shazam.
And actually, the George Lindsay, who played, because
he played Goober.
Quit moving it, because now I can't see it. George Lindsay played Goober, and Jim Neighbors played Gomer, and both of them were from Alabama.
Okay, cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the language, I imagine everybody for the most part speaks English in your area, with maybe small pockets of people that might be speaking Spanish. But in terms of, do you have any like French influence like Louisiana does? Anything like that? No. Okay.
That we're aware of.
Okay.
It's mainly some Hispanic communities.
Okay.
Around.
So let's jump over then to one of my favorite subjects, which is food and diet. Now, of course, I have a couple of pictured items on the screen here, including pulled pork, because of course, like barbecue and pork are fantastic in your area, I imagine. Banana pudding, which is a Southern staple, and of course, fried green tomatoes. But is there anything that maybe is distinctively from Alabama that you're like, oh, I can't believe he didn't mention that?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything that's distinctively Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I could come up with some things, but nothing's jumping off that says Alabama as far as, well, other than obviously the fried green tomatoes, from
and the barbecue.
The movie Fried Green Tomatoes. Um,
but I always think of shrimp and gumbo because of like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Got barbecue shrimp, we got lemon shrimp.
Get that down to a science, Chris. Thanks. And then in terms of sports and recreation, now I have a couple of sports teams up on here, but for the most part, either they're minor league or college teams. You guys don't really have any major league teams out of Alabama. But like, is there maybe anything that like what kind of sports do you guys do in the Alabama area? What kind of sports and recreation?
Big in Alabama is NASCAR racing.
Okay.
Because of Talladega.
Well, yes. If you don't count Alabama football.
Well, yeah, if you're not counting Alabama football, that's the biggest.
Yeah, football is huge here. I mean, everybody plans their weekend around either going to the game or making sure they can watch the game on TV.
Mm-hmm. And we were told when we first moved here, we had 6 months to decide if we were going to be Alabama fans or Auburn fans.
Uh-oh. That depends on which barbecues you guys get to go to at the end of the week. So test the food wisely. I was going to ask also, what about in terms of obviously hunting's, I imagine, a pretty big game thing that's down in your area. Fishing has got to be a huge thing, especially with the rivers that you guys have in the area. How's golfing? Are there golf spots in your area, like resorts or anything?
Yeah, we've got quite a few nice golf courses throughout the state.
Robert Trent Jones.
The Robert Trent Jones, I think there are 7 golf courses. It's either 5 or 7 of the Robert Trent Jones golf courses, and then we've got the Alabama State golf course that's on the coast.
Okay.
And I'm not much of a golfer, so I don't know where they all are, but we've just outside of Birmingham there's Greystone. They hold some of the older golf players around. What is it? Not the Professional Golfing Association, but the older, like the retired professional golfers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a nice area to cover, though.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask you. Now I know when we talked prior to us filming, you had mentioned that there aren't any necessarily state holidays, but are there maybe festivals or like a strawberry festival or like some kind of specific festival for fruits or fairs or things like that?
There's a local butterbean festival in Pinson, Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, we got butterbean festivals, strawberry festivals. I mean, we have food festivals.
There's a Greek food festival.
Yep.
That they have every year.
And then there's I forget what they call that festival where they have all the different cultures of food. There's
kind of like a world festival.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I mean, we like our food down here, so we have festivals.
I'm a huge fan myself.
But we're also talking about things that you typically think of somewhere else. Mobile is the home of the Mardi Gras parade.
Yeah, you guys had the very first one, even before New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yep, 1703, I
And
believe.
that surprised me.
Yeah.
And Birmingham had the first Veterans Day parade.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Wow, that's lovely. Okay, so let's talk about the population of your state. Now, you guys are hovering around 5 million right now, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And so for my students that are on the podcast, they won't see the map of Alabama, but you're welcome to go over to YouTube and find us there. In the picture here that I have, it looks like we have several population spots that are in red, which lead to be being high population centers. What is this area right here in the center that's pretty large?
So that would be the Birmingham metropolitan area.
Okay.
So that's gonna be Birmingham, Hoover, Trussville, all the surrounding areas.
Okay. And then if we go straight up north, we have a pretty large population center here too. That's Huntsville?
That would be Huntsville area and the Redstone Arsenal and stuff.
Okay.
Space Center.
And, Space Center.
Now what is down here? This is a little bit further south than Birmingham.
That's Montgomery.
That's Montgomery. Okay.
State capital.
And then down here at the coastline, I'm assuming that to be Mobile.
Yes, that's Mobile.
Okay. All right, wonderful. And then in terms of the economy and the larger companies that are in your area that hire a lot, obviously you have RTC, you have University Hospitals of Birmingham, you have Honda has a plant there, I believe, Alabama Power, Russell Brands. What other large employers are within your area?
Mercedes.
Yeah, we've got Mercedes. We also, I'm sitting here drawing a blank.
Well, Mercedes is pretty popular. I mean, that's a sizable one. Do you guys have you guys actually? Let me ask you, since you've done some cruising before, have you actually gone out of Mobile?
No, we haven't, because they only do 4 or 5 day cruises out of Mobile, and
we like 7 and 8 days.
Yeah, we don't even look at cruises less than 7 days if we can help it.
I don't blame you. I'm a huge cruise fan myself, so I get it. Then let's talk about travel and transportation for a minute. How are the roads and the condition of the roads in your area, would you say? Are they pretty pothole or are they pretty well maintained?
They're pretty potholed.
They are pretty potholed.
Well, we're better than Mississippi.
Okay.
Roads. So
okay.
Alabama and Mississippi are always racing for the bottom.
That's pretty fun. Okay. Well, what about in terms of major airports? If you had to fly internationally, where would you fly out of?
Birmingham is the major airport, or the biggest airport in Alabama, and then we have we have an airport in Huntsville, and we've got quite a few smaller airports. But
if you wanted to fly internationally, you'd fly out of Birmingham.
Internationally, it would be Birmingham, although I'm not sure where they go. I don't know. There's the nonstop international flight out of Birmingham.
They may have connections though to larger hubs too. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. Then in terms of, I know that Mobile must have a major ocean port there, I'm sure, for bringing stuff in. What about trains? Are trains a thing in your area?
Yeah, we've got, matter of fact, it's kind of a sore point with some people in our particular area, because their neighborhoods get blocked off by the
freight trains.
Which, in the U.S., I don't know how much you know about this, but in the U.S., most of the rails are owned by the freight companies. And so they make agreements with the passenger line, which is Amtrak, which is actually funded by the government in some portion. And, so as a passenger on a train, you're bumped to make things work better for the freight lines. So freight is king on the train tracks, and in Alabama, it's a little bit of a sore point for some people, because they'll park a freight train for sometimes 6, 7 hours.
Oh my gosh.
While they're doing, something, and you know, if it blocks off, something, it's like, well, build a bridge over it or something,
Or under it, or do something. Yeah. I
The
had this.
developers of those neighborhoods weren't really thinking clearly, I guess, when they designed it and only made one way in and one way out. Because then with near the train track, because then when the train stops and blocks it, then people are stuck, and then the neighbors complain. It's like, well, you knew that there was a train track right there, and you knew when you bought the house that there's one way in and one way out with the train.
I had a similar situation. I actually used to live in Arizona. My first home I bought actually was in the county of Pinell County, but it was in the city of Maricopa, not to be confused with Maricopa County, which is its own little thing. Um, but in that city, you had a choice. You could live on one side of the tracks or the other side of the tracks. And if you lived on the other side of the tracks, which is where I purchased my home, the costs were very, very inexpensive. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really great. So I ended up doing that. Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes the freight train will stop there for, in our particular case, it wasn't more than like a couple hours, but that would mean that you would have to drive around an hour and a half in order to get to your house, which is literally 500 feet beyond the train. I was like, come on, really? So yeah, that was a sore subject. I understand personally. Yes. So then really quick, in reference to tourism, are there any amusement parks or anything that are in Alabama?
Yeah. You were about to.
Oh, I was just going to say Alabama. I think it's called Alabama Adventure. It's changed names several times, but I think currently it's being called Alabama Adventure.
Yep. So it's a water park and a ride park, all together, and it's pretty nice. It's not anything on the level of Six Flags or anything like that, but that's something for the Birmingham area.
Okay.
For people to go see. And then there's the water park in I forget what the name of the town is. It's about 40 miles away, so people will drive around and see it. So there's some regional places
to do. Something about something beach.
Yeah, Spring Beach.
Spring Valley Beach.
Spring Valley Beach, yeah. So we've got a bunch of little smaller, nothing big that's going to attract people from multiple states, but beer is a thing down here. So we've got a lot of breweries that are opening up. So that's great for all the guys. They go hang out at the brewery and try different brew pub foods and different beers and stuff. So that's one of the great pastimes in Alabama, though.
That's awesome. What about now? Really quickly switching over, and I don't want to really talk politics, but I'm kind of curious about the government in your area. You guys, for the most part, have a pretty reliably red state. It's mostly conservative, but I think did you guys have a Democratic senator like not too long ago?
Yeah, so that's well.
Was it Doug Jones?
I won't get political into the story, but yeah, we ended up with the Democrat senator for the first time in 40 years.
Yeah, well,
and it wasn't natural the way that happened anyway, but he's since been replaced, in this last go around. But yeah, we're typically a red state.
Both local and
but I don't know that. I mean, I would say we've had equal representation between red or blue governors, and so it kind of fluctuates, but as a whole, we're a pretty conservative state.
Okay. Then about the resources that you guys have within your state, and just in thinking about the natural resources that you have, you guys are the only state in the entire union that can actually make their own steel from iron and tin that you guys have in your state directly. So that's pretty impressive. But in addition to that, you also have lumber. You have a thriving, natural beauty in your area. But game, obviously something that can be really important for hunting, and then of course water, critically important. But are there any things that I'm leaving out as well?
Well,
Cotton.
I mean, we've got the ocean, we've got the mountains. Alabama is known for the landscape and the lakes and rivers and mountains. We're considered the foothills of the Smokies.
Hmm.
So the highest elevation in Alabama is Mount Cheehaw, which is somewhere around 2,400 feet.
So
Looking at it.
not like super super tall mountains or anything like
No,
It's 2,407 feet.
yeah, 2,407 feet. So it's not super high, but it's you can feel the temperature difference. If you at the bottom and you go up top, and beautiful state park at the very top.
Hmm.
Beautiful, views, and that's another thing, with the way that Alabama is known for the landscape. Seriously, around here we're not considered the mountains, but any given day, if the day is right and the sky is blue, you turn the corner, you'll see a little bit of a mountainous horizon, and you see some of the beautiful lakes and stuff. I mean, we've got a beautiful state.
Yeah, we do.
absolutely. Now, Laura, I think before we went on air, you had also made mention a couple of the grown crops that are in your area. You got cotton,
And soybean
soybean, and
and
corn.
corn.
Those were some. Okay, cool, awesome. So you have a lot of different natural resources that you have to work with there, which is great. What about in terms of education? Obviously, you have all the different University of Alabama locations, Alabama State, um, Auburn. Gosh, who am I leaving out?
Um,
We've got the University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB.
yeah, he said all the University of Alabama's.
But you
We
also
have-
have, you also have private college as well.
Yeah, we have Montevallo College,
Sanford.
Stanford University.
Mhm.
Let's see, I'm trying to think.
But there are quite a lot of colleges there.
Yeah,
there's quite a
Birmingham
few.
Southern. We have quite a few colleges.
Yeah.
They've been there
around.
for like since the 1800s in some cases.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's great. Now we were talking in terms of the literacy rate, and specifically, I was talking with you, Laura, because you work with a lot of people who have literacy challenges, and
Yeah.
so, like, where does Alabama fit in the rank of states? Like, what is the literacy rate for the most part?
I think it was like 85%, 85, 86%, something like that. So we rank like 45th in the nation.
But
So
it's
yeah,
in,
we're
you know,
not
it-
right up
hopefully
there.
improving. Yeah, but hopefully it's improving, and so.
Yeah.
The first part is isolating those issues and finding out where they can be. Speaking as an educator myself, I totally
Right,
understand. Then, in terms of safety and security, obviously big cities are going to have their challenges, but to the best of your knowledge, have there ever been any major terrorism activity, either domestic or foreign, that have come out of the state at all?
No, not really. The only thing I can remember, since we talked beforehand and now something popped up. You remember the shootings that they were having around the Washington D.C. The sniper.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
I think there was some kind of relation with that guy that came through Birmingham or something. They found after the fact. So I'm not sure if he is from here or not, but that's the only thing. I mean, we're unless it's something we haven't heard about that they haven't made known. I mean, we're pretty quiet when it comes to
Yeah, several years ago, and I don't remember how many years ago now it's been. There was that abortion clinic bombing that
right.
injured that nurse. Critically injured that nurse.
Mm.
Yeah, that was not long after we moved here.
Yeah.
Pipe bombing at was it an abortion clinic?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was an abortion clinic.
But that was how many years ago, would you say?
I don't remember.
It had to have been around 2000-ish.
So it's like 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
And then, of course, prior to that, during the civil rights era, I'm sure there was a lot of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they had a good manhunt for them all around the Gatlinburg area. Yeah, it was big news.
Yeah, and like you said, back in the civil rights time, there was, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, and there was, all kind of stuff centered around there. But since then, there really hasn't been anything that we're aware of.
Well, that's good. That's good for people who are traveling these days. So to know that. So let me ask you this. Let's say I have a free ticket to fly to Alabama. Okay. Sell me on it. Why would I want to go to Alabama in just like maybe 60 seconds? Why would I want to go? Talk to me about that.
Well, we've got some of the best football that can be played in college football that happens here, every football season. We've got NASCAR at Talladega. We've got Barber Motorsports Park for, Indy type, racing. Motorcycle racing as well. We've got the beaches at Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. We've got the mountains and Mount Cheaha.
We've got the Space Center in
Huntsville. We've got the Space Center in Huntsville. So we've got something that everybody in the family can find.
And Helen Keller's house is really cool in Tuscumbia, because if you've ever seen Miracle Worker and you know they had to drive her around for a while so that she wouldn't realize how close the little guest cottage was that she was going to be staying in. It really surprised me how close it truly is. No wonder they had to drive her around for hours because you could be in the main house and just throw a paper airplane to the to the cottage of that's how close the two of them are. And so that was really cool to see.
Awesome. And we hadn't even touched on the food, so we may not be Bourbon Street or Bill Street, Memphis and stuff, but we've got a lot of food places in Alabama, especially in Birmingham. So there's something for every foodie here.
Awesome. Well, Chris and Laura, I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to meet with me and go over your state. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It was fantastic. Now, in addition to that, you guys also have a travel channel too. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Go for it.
Well, I've just been putting stuff out there ever since, I created my YouTube channel in 2008-ish.
Oh, wow.
And, I've been throwing stuff up just, as we were doing things. I just put it up there as a place to store it and keep it where I can share it with people, and hopefully somebody else can have a little enjoyment out of seeing what I saw. And so I've never really spent any effort in editing to do anything with it. A lot of it is just raw stuff, just dumped out there, which in its own way is, I guess, can be unique.
Yeah, that's definitely distinctive to your channel, because it really gives a bird's eye view of what you're seeing from your own perspective. Right. And that's great. I actually started my channel for a very similar reason. I had people that are in my family that are in their 80s now that can't really travel. They have some mobility issues. And so I wanted to create content that they would be able to see and go around the world and live vicariously through my travels. So it was a great opportunity for that. So I appreciate you doing something like that. That's really amazing. Now, if people wanted to look at your content, certainly they can go to your website, which is at spelled SEA, theworldwithchris.com. They can also find you on Facebook at See the World with Chris Crew, or on YouTube at See the World with Chris, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you both so much. It really means a lot. Appreciate it. And for my
thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Now for my students that are out there listening, if you have any questions or comments about any of the content you've seen today, please feel free to send me an email at scott@theprofessortravel.com. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're seeing this video and you'd like to know when new ones go up, please feel free to click the bell icon right above your head here, or above my head, I should say, in order to be notified about when those new videos come out. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to subscribe. It doesn't cost any extra, and we really appreciate the viewership. If you like this content and you want to see more of it, give us a thumbs up so that way we can know a little bit more about what your interests are. And then finally, if you're hearing this on the podcast, certainly review us, rate us. We appreciate any and all the feedback. So until our next time, my name is Scott. I am the Professor Travel, and make every day a travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.